Hello, and I am assuming we are now live on YouTube. I am Parson Michael, and you're tuned into.
Hello,
Oh, I need to turn the
and
volume
I
down
am
here.
assuming we are now live on YouTube. I am Parson Michael, and you're tuned into.
Okay, so welcome to Sacred Ground. You are tuned into Fresh Green Blessings. This is our Bible study program, and if you're watching this as part of the YouTube live stream, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and pick it up on here. Give me a minute. I'm going to try and pick this up
I'll go look, Mr. Malley.
to see if I think what I need to do is keep the volume down on this, and then I should be able to make sure that this is working. It's a little tough because I'm doing this by myself today, so it says it's live. There we go.
You're
Okay.
on.
I'm on?
Yeah.
Okay, if you can check it, Ollie, I'm
I've
going
heard you
to
before, so I'll see if I can hear the bell.
see if you can hear the bell. I am going to try to keep track of the chat. It may be impossible for me. So invite you to be patient with me today. I'm going to test out the bell. Ollie is here for a little while, and she'll see if the bell is working. This is our mindfulness bell, and we're invited to enjoy the sound of the bell. And hopefully that's working. Ollie, if you hear that, you could let me know in the chat. If that's working, then I'll be able to see if I see the chat as well. So we'll see how this all works. I'm doing this with a little extra step today. We got cut off last week for some reason, right about the 1 hour mark. So I don't know if did that bell come through, Ollie?
It came through.
Great, thank you. So I'm doing this one through Zoom, so if I get cut off again after an hour, I'll still be able to upload the full program because we seem to have lost the last 20 minutes or so of that program, unfortunately, last week. All right, I need to get myself centered. It's one of those days, folks. It's like when you're just kind of running around trying to get it all together, feeling kind of the frustrations of all the technology. And yet, at the same time, I know we have folks listening in different parts of the country, different parts of the world, and that inspires me as well. So it's sort of this, everything's a dance, right? This dance between the frustrations of the tech and then the wonderful aspect of being able to reach people. Let me say a couple of words about us, about Sacred Ground, about my work with Sacred Ground. We started this in some form back in 2009. We are a spiritual community melding together the beneficial teachings of Buddhism, Christianity, and earth-centered spirituality. As far as I know, we're the only ones doing that in the world. Back in maybe 2012, I remember a guy visiting our church. We were doing a service here, right here at the house, and I forget where he was from, but he was shocked to find out that we were the only one. He thought we were a branch of something that had started somewhere else. So far, we're pretty much the only one. This program, which we're going through our second series now. This program is our Bible study program. We call it Fresh Green Blessings, and the aspiration is to read the Bible with fresh eyes, with bringing a Buddhist lens, bringing Mother Earth perspective, and drawing from Christian tradition, and reading it with a sense of the sacred, reading it with aspirations toward the holy, with search for inspiration and hope, and also with a bit of a critical eye. So really a kind of a complex reading, prayerfully, poetically, and we invite you, if this is your first session with us, to see what happens with that. In this current series, we're going through each week a single psalm and a reading from a chapter of Mark. Mark is considered probably, almost all scholars agree, the first of the canonical Gospels, the oldest, a bit older than Matthew, Luke, and certainly John. And sometimes Matthew and Luke draw from Mark. Mark tends to be more terse, shorter, fewer details. But we're going to talk today about reading from a few verses of chapter 6 of Mark. And before we get to that, we're going to focus on a psalm. And we're doing a single psalm each week. And many of these psalms are rather short. This is a short one. And I think even before the reading, I'm going to share something with you. This is Psalm 128. It's not one of the most popular psalms by far. Doesn't have a lot of kind of beautiful imagery in that. It's in some ways, a very practical psalm. It's about sort of the day-to-day life. And I want to talk for just a moment before I even read, because, well, here, I'm going to read the first line. Verse 1 of Psalm 128 reads, "Happy is everyone who fears the Lord, who walks in his ways." Here's the thing, and words are so challenging. So many people in modernity, 2025, they're going to hear that. Oh, fear. I'm not about fear. I don't need that stuff. Okay, fine. And again, my aspiration is not to convince you or anyone of anything, but my aspiration is to engage in a very deep way with these readings. And one of the things that I have learned is that when you see that word fear, there's a number of words in the Hebrew that are translated into English as fear. And this particular word is Yah-Reh. And that word actually means to revere. So there could be an element of fear in this, more like awe and trembling. So if you think of like, oh my gosh, you're just in, you're in the presence of the sacred. And it's more of a humility and not so much this, oh my gosh, I need to cower and hide away. So here we are. I haven't even read beyond verse 1, but you can see this is one of the great challenges. So we have these sacred texts, but we have literally thousands of years, and we have the issues of what's lost in translation. And there's so many other factors as well that I sometimes talk about. But I want to lay that out for you. And we'll talk more about Psalm 128 after I read it through. I'm going to start by reading the New Revised Standard Version. Every week I read the NRSV, the New Revised Standard, and I also read the King James. I love the old language that we sometimes, or that we usually get a taste of with the King James. So, Psalm 128. The happy home of the faithful. A song of ascents. And I'll read it slowly. I'll say one more word, ring the bell, and then read it. The invitation is to not hear this with your analytical mind. The invitation, Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Zen Buddhist monk, he says when we're exposed to sacred readings, we're invited to be like the earth, with a gentle rain falling upon it. The earth accepts it. It soaks it in. If it has nourishment, if there's nourishment in that rainwater, then the earth takes in the nourishment. So I invite you to be like the earth and to see the readings as like the rain. I'm going to do a couple of breaths here before I read too, because I realize I want to be a little more present to this. First, we're invited to enjoy the bell. How weirdly cool is that? Just enjoy the sound of the bell. Can we, like a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, let go of our thinking and enjoy the bell? You might now hear the plane overhead. You can enjoy the sound of the plane. You can say a little prayer, hope all those are well in their travels. And we can enjoy our breath. We can enjoy breathing in and out. In and out. Someday will be our last day. We'll take that last breath in, that last breath out. Hopefully that day is far into the future. But right now, can we just appreciate taking that breath in and out? In and out. In and out. In the Hebrew, the word for breath is ruah. It's also the word for spirit. And I mentioned Thich Nhat Hanh. He spoke of the energy of the breath in and out as being truly the energy of the Holy Spirit in and out. This idea of the sacred within us and the sacred surrounding us. In and out. Maybe a little deeper now. In and out. And now, fellow bits of earth, I invite you to enjoy the rain, the falling drizzle of Psalm 128. The happy home of the faithful. A song of ascents. Happy is everyone who fears the Lord, who walks in his ways. You shall eat the fruit of the labor of your hands. You shall be happy, and it shall go well with you. Your wife will be like a fruitful vine within your house. Your children will be like olive shoots around your table. Thus shall the man be blessed who fears the Lord. The Lord bless you from Zion. May you see the prosperity of Jerusalem all the days of your life. May you see your children's children. Peace be upon Israel. Of course, with this over 2,000-year-old document, we have this language which is very patriarchal. So along with fear, revere rather than fear, we can hear these words in terms of how this is all addressed to the men. And in our hearts, or even in our voices, we can modify it. May you and your partner be like fruitful vines within your house. Your children will be like olive shoots around your table. Thus shall the man and the woman be blessed who revere the great sacred. And of course, those of you without children, the children in your lives, the young people that you touch, whether it's with a kind smile at the grocery store, whether it's a friend's children, a nephew and niece. I remember I had, there was a woman, Betty Seamack in my life, who wasn't even related, but she was like an aunt. She was just like another extra mom. Ollie and I speak of this, extra moms and honorable men. Maybe someone that you have a chance to mentor or coach or teach, or just be there for. Whether that person be a young adult or an older adult or a child. I'll read now Psalm 128, the King James Version. Blessed is everyone that feareth the Lord, that walketh in his ways. For thou shalt eat the labor of thine hands. Happy shalt thou be, and it shall be well with thee. Thy wife shall be as a fruitful vine by the sides of thine house, thy children like olive plants round about thy table. Behold, that thus shall the man be blessed that feareth the Lord. The Lord shall bless thee out of Zion, and thou shalt see the good of Jerusalem all the days of thy life. Yes, thou shalt see thy children's children, and peace upon Israel. There's something else that happens in this psalm. And I will acknowledge and admit that its emphasis has this, heterosexual emphasis. And we're open and affirming here at Sacred Ground, and we recognize love in all its forms. And with that, again, I invite you into a wider view, because so often we encounter a negating of sexual union, separating that away from the sacred. And here we're basically hearing, be fruitful and multiply. We're hearing that these relations are not sinful, but are actually part of the holy, that they're sacramental. And of course, we here at Sacred Ground extend that beyond the heterosexual relationships, but that also points to our earth connection. I mentioned this is not a lofty one full of angelic images. This is about getting the fruit from the work that you do. I'll do a little Lectio Divina, a little poetic reading of Psalm 128. I'll do a little word shifting on this as well. Happy everyone who reveres with awe the Lord. Everyone who walks in God's ways. You shall eat the fruit of the labor of your hands. You shall be happy, and it shall go well with you. You and your partner, if you have a partner, may you be fruitful vines with each other within your house. May the children that you produce and the children whose lives you touch, may they be olive shoots around your table. May you know their children. May you feel the blessing and the joys of this all the days of your life. Happy in wonder and awe and longing for the Lord, walking in her ways, eating the fruit of the earth that you've encountered through your labor, being, if you have a partner, a fruitful vine with your partner, fruitful in goodness, fruitful in kindness. And if you're blessed with children, may you see them as olive shoots in their own growth, in their own unfurling, in their own vining with others. May the Lord bless us all. May the Lord bless us all. May the Lord bless us all. Our work is to grow. And can these old stories, can they help us grow? It's fine to critique them. It's good, it's necessary. I'm reading right now, I just started reading I believe it's called The Good Earth by Pearl Buck, which won I think it won the Pulitzer back in the 1930s. And you hear this whole different way in terms of men and women and their relationships in China, going way, way back. And Buddhism tells us that things change. Everything's impermanent. And again, I mentioned the dance before. I want to invite us into this dance. I think one of the great gifts that we can give ourselves is to look to things from the past and not blindly uplift them, and also not blindly attack them, but learn to dance, to find what's worthy, to push against what's not helpful, to see what's useful and beneficial, and to see what we should let go, to see where worthy fruit is that can nurture us, and to see what should be left behind. I am absolutely convinced that we cannot take it all forward and bring it all and say, oh, it's all good. I am just as convinced that we do great harm when we say it's all bad. This dance is our work. We spoke of the vine of relationships. If you're in relationship with people, whether that's family, friends, acquaintances, co-workers, it's a dance. It's a taking what's good in that and trying to modify what's not. And those of you who want the perfect relationship, whether it's a romantic relationship or a friendship or a neighbor or a coworker, good luck. I haven't met too many perfect people. But can we do the dance? Can we do the dance? We're about a few minutes away from moving to Mark chapter 6, and what I like to do is a little bit of yoga, a little bit of movement in between. I've explained before that both Ollie and I are certified yoga instructors, and I'm going to just do a couple of movements. I put the mat out today. If you have a yoga mat, you could pause the video and go grab it if you want, or we're just going to be on the ground for a couple of minutes, so you might not need it. I also have a little knee pad I typically use. I'm getting to be an old guy. But I'll go ahead and get on the mat and explain just a couple of little movements and a question. Why? Because we're human beings. Just as we're meant to be outdoors, just as we're meant to work and gather the fruit, we're also meant to move, not just sit and talk. And I think that when we can get a little bit more in touch with our bodies, whether that's through breath work or through a little bit of mindful movement, it puts us more in touch with everything. Breath and spirit, body and soul, earth and sky. So, a little bit of movement, just a little bit. And I'm going to readjust the camera here. And let's see, I think we'll be able to see here okay. I'll even bring the mic a little more toward me to help with the sound. There we go. Now, I'm going to invite you to get on, put my beads and rosary here underneath my shirt so they're not hanging out. I'm going to invite you to get on all fours here. And I was talking to a guy a while back and he said, just getting on the ground. How many times do adults get on the ground? Well, for myself, every day. And I really think it helps keep me young. So one is, you might just try this. And again, do what's appropriate for you. I'm on my knees here. I've got my feet down flat. And how does that feel? Does that feel okay to you? What we're going to do is we're going to go down and we're going to put our hands down on the ground, and we should have our knees about, normal width here, and we're going to be like railroad tracks between our hands and the lower parts of our legs. And we're going to do a simple cat-cow. And what that is on the in-breath, we just rise up, and the out-breath, round down. You could really bring that belly button up toward your spine. In, out. In, out. In, out. Now I invite you into flat back position, and you can think of it, the idea is to keep a kind of a straight line all the way across your back, all the way across the back of your neck. So you can put a cup and saucer on the back of your neck at this point. And now I invite you to bump your hips to the left and your upper body to the right. In, out, back to center. And now, hips to the right, head to the left. In, out. Nice and slow, you might try to look at your back foot there. In, out. In, out. Nice stretch in the middle of the body here. In, out. And one more time this side. In, out. Now this time, I invite you to bump your head to the right and your hips to the right. In, out. Now, hips to the left and head to the left. In, out. Don't force it too much, just a little bit. In, to the right, out. In to the left, out. One more each side. In, out, and to the left. In, out. Last little move here on all fours is I invite you to lift up your left leg and extend it. Whoops, what am I bumping there? Chair. And your right arm and extend it. And keep your head straight down. And again, think of that teapot on the back of your neck. Wiggle those toes and fingers. And then bring them in and out. In, and out. In and out. And down. And now we're going to extend the right leg and the left arm. And in and out. In and out. In and out. And now back on all fours. Now curl the toes under. And this might be a little bit hard on the toes, but you could try it if you wish. And then going back and getting a nice little stretch. You can even try and get those pinky toes down. Getting all your toes down there. You can feel a nice stretch there in the base of the feet there. All right. And now we'll go back up. And I'll bring the chair back. And we'll move the microphone back. We'll move the camera a little bit here. Wow, I'm even, oopsie, don't want to bump the candle over. Even perspiring a little bit with that. That's good for me anyway. Take this off. That little bit of movement, you know, so often we're so still. And what happens when we start to move a little bit? You know, we get in our bodies. And when we get in our bodies, that affects spirit, right? Body and spirit, they're so interconnected. I mean, you know, yoga is seen, in the Far East, yoga is seen as a spiritual practice, as it should be. Because it's this idea of uniting the body and the breath and the mind and yeah. I can just feel my whole body is a little, you know, we didn't do much, but a little bit tingly, and that makes me a slightly different person as I come to the readings now. Enjoy the sound of the train coming by. We have a train. I can see it right outside my window. And Norfolk Southern. And along with the train, I will also invite the bell to sound. For Mark, we're going to focus right on the beginning of Mark chapter 6, verses 1 through 6. Again, we'll start with the NRSV. Jesus left that place and came to his hometown, and his disciples followed him. On the Sabbath, he began to teach in the synagogue, and many who heard him were astounded. They said, "Where did this man get all this? What is this wisdom that has been given to him? What deeds of power are being done by his hands? Is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary, and brother of James and Joseph and Judas and Simon, and are not his sisters here with us?" And they took offense at him. Then Jesus said to them, "Prophets are not without honor, except in their hometown and among their own kin and in their own house." And he could do no deed of power there, except that he laid his hands on a few sick people and cured them. And he was amazed at their unbelief. Then he went about among the villages, teaching. And now I'll share the King James Version, Mark chapter 6, verses 1 through 6. And Jesus went out from thence and came into his own country, and his disciples follow him. And when the Sabbath day was come, he began to teach in the synagogue. And many, hearing him, were astonished, saying, From whence hath this man these things? And what wisdom is this which is given unto him, that even such mighty works are wrought by his hands? Is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary, the brother of James and Joseph and of Judah and Simon, and are not his sisters here with us? And they were offended at him. And Jesus said unto them, A prophet is not without honor, but in his own country, and among his own kin, and in his own house. And he could there do no mighty work, save that he laid his hands upon a few sick folk and healed them. And he marveled because of their unbelief. And he went round about the villages, teaching. Finally, I'll offer the third translation. This comes from Sarah Rudin's recent book called The Gospels. And once again, we have Mark chapter 6, verses 1 through 6. And Iusus went away from there and came to his own hometown, and his students followed him. And when the Sabbaton arrived, he set about teaching in the synagogue. And many people were powerfully struck when they heard him. And they said, Where did he get all this? And what's this insight that's been granted him? And how are such powerful things done by his hands? Isn't this the builder, the son of Maria, and the brother of Iacobos and Ioses and Iudas and Simon? And aren't his sisters here with us? So they were tripped up by him. But Iusus said to them, A prophet isn't treated dishonorably, except in his hometown and among his own relatives and in his own house. And in that place he couldn't perform any powerful act, except that he placed his hands on a few sick people and healed them. But he was amazed at their lack of trust. Then he made a circuit of the villages, teaching. Many of us are familiar with this reading. We've heard versions of it before. There's a couple of things that I wanted to share, I wanted to point out. One was this line that's rather striking. Verse 5. And he could there do no mighty work. In this Interpreter's Bible, it says these are blunt words. He could not. And the commentator goes on to say, they were too blunt for Matthew, who softens them into, he did not do many mighty works there. But the Gospel of Mark says he could not. And it points to this idea of faith or trust, and that the idea of an interaction between Jesus and others. It's not one way. This author says it even fits well with what Jesus says in the previous chapter, daughter, your faith has made you well. This idea that we are in interaction with that which is sacred. This is not just this one-way thing, which I think is how so many people tend to think of Jesus nowadays. As Jesus just out there doing these things, and not this relating to. It doesn't say he chose not to, it says he could not. Save for a little bit of healing. The other thing that's interesting is, and this interpreter, get this interpreter's name here. Alfred Luckock. I've mentioned him before. I don't really know much about him. But Alfred Luckock speaks of this as well, that these people had all these facts about Jesus. They had facts about his family, that he was a carpenter, and even that kind of a derogatory thing. You know, he's not a rabbi, he's not a scribe, he's a lowly carpenter. So you have all these facts. And I guess I'll share just how he writes about this. There are a class of people who are sure that when they get all the material facts about a situation, they have grasped all there is. And he speaks of others approaching life with mystery and wonder. We're back to the psalm now, awe. Being awestruck. Not fearful, but full of awe. And this interpreter says, some people hold a dogma that whatever is not a material fact has no standing as truth. I find that interesting. And then I found myself thinking, I was reading this book called Zen Catholicism from 1963. And they speak of Maya. And Maya in Buddhist tradition is often seen as kind of like a representative of the devil. But if you look up Maya, you'll see, well, Maya means illusion. Not delusion, but illusion. Not seeing things as they truly are. Here's the thing in Buddhism. Maya is also related to words like measurement and month. So it's about breaking things up, analyzing things, dissecting them. There's worth in that. There's value in that. But again, the dance. If we make that the whole picture, the dissection, we miss a lot. A friend of yours, if they die, if surgeons or whoever works on the dead, if they immediately came in and took apart the body and put the liver here and the spleen here and the heart here, and here are these bones, and they could break it into pieces. But it really wouldn't give you much of a sense of your friend, Keisha or Sam or whatever their name was. It really wouldn't tell you much about them. It might tell you some things. Oh, they had hip surgery. You could see it here. Oh yeah, they complained about that pain in their back, and you can see here the trouble they had in their spine. Or maybe even, oh, my friend had some sort of, let's say they were late in life and they had some sort of dementia, and we can see some deterioration here in the brain that's actually recognizable, it's actually measurable. But you won't get a sense of how that friend loved French fries or tennis or her partner. There's a richness. There's a richness to this life that you don't get just by saying, I know all about them. I know who his brothers are. I know his sisters are right here. We know he's just a carpenter. We know his mom is Mary. We know all there is to know. No, we never ever do. Never. Khalil Gibran said something like, some are teaching you what to do and others are teaching you what not to do. And I've enjoyed modifying that to say, almost everyone is teaching you both what to do and what not to do. It depends on the moment and the circumstance. And your challenging work is to discern when they are teaching you what to do and when they are teaching you what not to do. My father taught me many wonderful things to do. He also taught me some things I don't want to do. We say the same thing to our kiddos, Ollie and I. Your job is to figure out what we're doing that is worth repeating and carrying on and what you should let go of. That just doesn't come from Maya, from that analyzing from that here are the material facts. It requires something more subtle. It requires a willingness to be sometimes wrong. And it requires a willingness to sometimes trust. It's another great line in that Gospel of Mark, near the end there. And it's almost, it feels like almost like a throwaway line, but my gosh, you could go on for ages thinking about this one. And Jesus was amazed at their unbelief. What an interesting thing to be amazed at. I've talked a lot at folks today, and I want to leave some room. If you'd like to say something in the chats, if you'd like to just acknowledge, I should have said that more earlier, but if you have any thoughts on what we've been talking about with either the Psalm or Mark, you're welcome to post that. And again, I'm not sure, I'm doing this on my own today. Ollie has some other things she has to do, so I know there are some folks watching out there, but if you'd like to share something, if you had some perspective, you don't have to agree with me. Believe me, I make no claims to have any wisdom or deep understanding, but I enjoy this wrestling. I enjoy this playing with the words, playing with my own understanding. And I'll throw one other thing out too. We can say things that contradict each other. Even the same person. I might say something in 5 minutes that contradicted what I said 7 minutes ago. That's okay too. We're searching for vastness. We're trying to grasp the ungraspable. And we're also trying to find resources that can serve us as we go forward. Things that can inspire us, get us to think more deeply, and hopefully act more kindly in the world. The interpreter of Mark said, "How often do we shut somebody out because we know them so well?" I remember once somebody saying of some famous movie star or something, you know, if you were in class with him in kindergarten and you saw him eating the paste, you know, you might not think, or some famous scientist, you might not think they're so brilliant today. Can we keep opening the door? I know I've used the word dance, kind of surprised myself 3 or 4 or 5 times today. And I think that's part of what all this is this mindful dance, continuing to engage. So if anyone has any comments, they're welcome to share them in the chat. And I'll take a sip of tea and I'll try a little bit of a poetic reading of these last words for today from Mark chapter 6. I'll draw from the NRSV for these last words. Jesus came to his hometown. His disciples followed. On the Sabbath, he began to teach in the synagogue. Many were astounded. Where did he get all this? What's this wisdom that's been given to him? Is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary? Are not his sisters here with us and his brothers? Prophets, not without honor, except in their hometown, among their own kin, in their own house. And he could do no deed of power there. And he was amazed at their unbelief. Then he went about among the villages teaching. He did not give up. He did not try to persuade. And he did not say, "This is all about me." He went out teaching. 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 He went out teaching. 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 And we may ask, enjoy the sound of the train? We have some words here, some records, some possibilities of what may have been said. What was Jesus teaching? What is Jesus teaching? What was he teaching? And why are we so little focused on his teaching? What he was teaching. What, despite the obstacles with kin and family and hometown and naysayers, he was teaching. It was not so much about himself, it was about teaching. What was Jesus teaching? And we may ask, what can we be learning? What can we be learning? What can we be learning? What was the teachings? What are the teachings? Are we learning? Can we learn? Will we learn from his teaching? Peace and amen to you all. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you can join us next Wednesday at 4 for Fresh Green Blessings. And may we go on learning with an openness to the worthy teachings